6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris. I'm Chris. She's Anna. We're back after a week off, which is cool because we were here 2 weeks ago, but we had a week off, and we just take vacations.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, yes, we did miss the start of the season, but now there's just more to talk about. And
wait, the season started?
Yeah, so hockey is back, in case you didn't know. But it's kind of cool because we don't have to sort of have the panic reaction after the first couple of games. Now we can have
Okay. What are you talking about, panic reaction, Anna?
Now we can have the more measured reaction that we're known for, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, yes. Us as Canucks fans,
yeah, exactly.
known for the measured reaction and analysis of anything.
Yeah, and it's just very funny to listen to podcasts that are like, especially like daily ones, or you know, more frequently than us, and then you hear it after the fact, and you're just like, wow, people were really panicking after a game or two, huh?
I was away. I think our listeners know this. I was off to a wedding in upstate New York, so I didn't get a whole lot of Canucks hockey. You'd think if they were traveling in the Eastern time zone, it might be easier to find Canucks hockey, but no.
No, America, it's just like hockey. What is that?
Yeah, so I didn't get to see a whole lot. And then when I got home, the game that I could have watched was too early by the time I got home. The game on Thursday, I will admit I'd forgotten because I was still jet lagging on hockey mode. So I finally watched a little hockey yesterday, and that was simply because there wasn't a whole lot to do until the election results came in. But on that note, the Vancouver Canucks, the BC Lions, and the Vancouver Whitecaps all played around the same time. It made for some difficult channel surfing for me.
Oh, yeah. I did see some like chat on Twitter to that extent. Did everyone win?
No. 2 out of 3.
Did Whitecaps lose?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's not a Whitecaps podcast, but let me talk about them for a quick moment. First of all, that was decision day. So that game could move them up as high as 7th or potentially as low as 9th, depending on the result of other matches. To get up to 7, they needed to win. Now, the Whitecaps, to put into perspective, only a month and a half ago, were arguably in contention for top 4. And then they proceeded to get, I think, 2 or maybe 1 point in like 6 matches. Like, if you talk about a collapse, that was it. They bloody well, Canuck themselves in the foot. And then in a match where they need to win, they get a lead, blow it in spectacular fashion, and then lose on an OG.
Ew.
But thankfully, they're not the only team that went and Canuck themselves in the foot. So they have a play into the playoffs game where they're the home team. But because BC Place is a multi-event venue, it's booked. So the Whitecaps will be playing a home match in Portland against the Portland Timbers.
That doesn't sound great when Portland are known for having a pretty loud crowd and hating the Whitecaps.
The Whitecaps had sent out an email just to let everyone know if we have a home game to play in, we won't be able to play it at home. And it's in Portland. Anyhow, this is a Canucks podcast, enough of the Whitecaps. So Vancouver Canucks have a few games under the belt. We're going to talk about that, react to it finally. At least Anna will, and I'll just sort of, chime in with a, ha-ha and a hee-hee here and there. Obviously, they continue to play. They'll be home soon-ish, so we'll talk about what that might look like after they wrap up on the road in Chicago. People are getting stats. We're going to talk about some accomplishments. And I don't know. There's goaltending. It's always goaltending. Yep. So we'll talk about that too. But let's rewind. The Vancouver Canucks got things underway back on the 9th. I don't know if anyone here that's tuning into our show remembers that. They were at home against the Calgary Flames. And I happened to be traveling to Montreal that particular day. So I wasn't able to watch the game. I actually asked in the restaurant in the hotel if they'd be able to put on the Canucks game, and the guy laughed at me.
Wow.
I wasn't trying to say turn off the Habs. Like, the Habs are playing, no problem. The Canucks will be after it, but they just laughed. So I didn't get to watch it. So I'm up in the hotel room. It's, like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I got to get some sleep. Granted, I'm still sort of on West Coast time, so it wasn't too bad. And the Canucks are up 4-1 after the first period, Anna. They were up 4-1.
I remember.
So I went to sleep.
Yeah, bad choice. Or maybe good choice.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I got a good night's sleep.
And you probably felt at ease. Yeah.
And then I go and I look at the score, and I was very confused that, one, the Canucks did not win this game, but two, they lost in glorious fashion.
Yeah. So I was there to witness this game. It was very weird because it kind of felt like almost fated. Like, if you're in the Vancouver area and you witnessed the Saturday rain, it was like that, but only for 10 minutes. Like, crazy rain, got absolutely soaked despite having an umbrella. And then 10, 15 minutes later, sunshine, rainbows. So it just felt like something was in the air. And in that first period, Canucks just, dominated. Like, you just felt like, ooh, this is going to get real ugly for Calgary. And, this is not going to be close. Daniel Sprong continued his scoring fashion. Brock Besser. We had power play goals. Which just seems like a thing of the distant past now. But, when that second period started and nothing happened for, most of that period, really? Calgary didn't have any chances. Canucks didn't really have any chances. It was just, wishy-washy nonsense until Calgary scored that one goal. You just thought, that was the period to, consolidate. And Canucks were like, no, I think we'll just take off their neck. And then, yeah, it just collapsed.
Well, so it's 4-1 after one. Canucks are just seriously out shooting the Flames. It was 15-5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm in Montreal. I'm sort of reacting based on what people are saying on social media, and I'm looking at the box score online. I'm like, okay, this is good. Canucks, they're scoring goals, and something that you and I've talked about is, in the absence of a goaltender that can stand on their heads, with all respect to Silas here, score a lot of goals. That's what they're doing. Now, the interesting thing is the second period that you're talking about, Harris, not much happens. There's a goal. I mean, Calgary scores one late in the period. But the Vancouver Canucks, having had 15 shots in the first, decided that was enough.
Yeah, they were like, sign off. Go home.
And despite, thinking that you didn't have to shoot anymore, they did get 3 shots in the period. They weren't really out of it.
No.
But then the third period happened. And, Calgary gets an early goal. 2:41 in the box sheet. So I don't know if that's considered early, but an early goal. Yeah. 6 minutes later, they score again on the power play. Not even 2 minutes after that, they've scored again. Now they've taken a lead. This is the part that I feel is very Vancouver Canucks-esque. Build up a big lead and then suddenly find yourself behind. It's like they put it all on the ice and forgot that it was a 60-minute game, and they threw it all out there in 20.
I mean, some of it was so obvious too. So I sat at the top of the arena, and we're usually pretty high up, but this was we were right next to Sportsnet studio. So I don't know if it was just I feel like I had such a good vantage point, but it was so obvious, that goal that Calgary scored coming off the Canucks power play where it was just like the Calgary player comes out of the box, like, sneaking up on the power play unit like Jaws and just steals the puck, breakaway scores, and it just was like, are you idiots? Like, it really felt like the most obvious thing that could have happened. So it was super frustrating to watch, and yes, it was good that they didn't have the quit. That JT Miller scored that tying goal with a couple of minutes left. But, like, overtime was totally, Calgary, and then Zary completely walks Roenick.
Only got 2 shots in overtime.
Yeah.
Sure, it was only in a minute 33, but...
And, yeah, like, Zary completely walks Roenick for the goal. Maybe he was exhausted, who knows, but it just was like, oof. That's not... Yeah, the whole night was just, like, bad signs.
Well, it's the first game of the season. Yeah, not ideal, but they got a point. And that's all you can really, really hope for, right? So you take that lesson, you learn from it, so that when you go into the game on Friday against the Flyers, you correct those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. They capitalize on your dominance when you have it. Did they do that? I don't think they did.
Well, okay. I unfortunately at this point don't know much what happens this game because we're now in upstate New York. I'm at a wedding welcome thing, so I'm just not even able to pay attention on social media. Vancouver, they get the first goal. Problem, they then give up an equalizer before the period's over.
And to be clear, like if Kevin Lankinen wasn't really dialed in that first period, that could have been much worse.
Vancouver gets a lead in the second. Problem, got to go through the third. But if there's at least any consolation, 3-on-3 solved nothing.
Is that consolation?
Right? So that's improvement. They lost in the shootout.
Yeah. And it was just like, blah.
But I mean, having not seen this game, I have nothing to compare it to because, I saw the Vancouver Canucks against the Flyers this past weekend. That Flyers team didn't look so good. The Vancouver Canucks were the favorite in Philly, having not played so hot so far.
Say,
so I'd have to think
you did not see it because wedding. I did not see most of the third period because Sportsnet.
Yeah, it's underrated.
Yeah.
So, okay. So was that actually a broadcast issue too? Because I saw people going off about if you had subscribed to Sportsnet Plus or whatever it is, you couldn't see it online. It said you're in the United States.
So
or stuff like that.
I heard there were issues during the first game. Obviously, I was there, so I didn't know about that. But I heard there were issues. And it was to do with their geolocation thing being off. That game, people were having problems in the first period. I didn't have any problems, and I think that was on the TV kind of side, Sportsnet's TV coverage, because I was not having any issues. And then in the third period, pretty early on, it just stopped and said, this game is only available in Canada. And I was just I was watching the game at friend of the show, Annalise's place. She lives over the Kamloops Bridge. I was like, I can see Rogers.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, in fairness, your perception of where you need your passport to travel around Vancouver
I know, it's true.
Maybe in line with what Sportsnet thinks is Canada.
But yeah, I was like, I can see Rogers Arena from where I am right now. Come on. So that was super frustrating. I just think it's kind of embarrassing. I said this on Twitter during the game, but if this happened in the UK for 30 seconds, there would be outrage on a national level. But the fact that Sportsnet didn't even apologize or recognize what happened.
Well, no, why would they? No, their fault. We'll do better.
Yeah. Anyway, it sucks.
It's again, I haven't a clue what caused it, but if I were to hazard a guess, the fact that both our national sports networks are on the sort of mad dash to who can downsize the fastest.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And I know
big problem.
You have experience of angry customers during Canucks games.
Oh, I hated the Canucks pay-per-view days. Just absolutely hated them.
But it's just like...
That's not because I had to pay for the pay-per-view. It's because I worked on the end of the people who didn't get them.
But, like, not once were they like, oh, sorry about what happened. Like, we'll fix it.
Well, during the pay-per-view days, they weren't sore either. They'd go and say, oh, call your network provider. They'll make it right. The network provider had absolutely no problem with the crap service that the Canucks were, pumping into the network.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that wasn't, Rogers Sportsnet.
We're not going to go off the rails politically again, but this is the, like, thing living in a country that has 3. This is not, like, exaggerating for comic fact. 3 media companies that cover everything in the whole country. Now that Shores...
Only 2 do sports. Only 2 do sports.
Yeah, exactly. It's, like, shocking. It's just, like, I am all for, like, more socialist setup, but that does not involve, like, giants eating up the competition or the government running things super incompetently. See ICBC.
So, okay. I never had an issue with CBC sports coverage.
Right.
So,
CBC is
when we're
not
talking
the
about
problem.
the socialist side,
It's
I
true.
had no problem with that. They were top notch. Like their Olympics coverage, their CFL coverage, like their CBC sports was a thing. And the old school baby blue jackets. Oh, that's nostalgia talking right there. Anyhow, I didn't get to watch it. Most of you didn't get to watch the third period. But at least y'all got to see Alex Edler suit up as a Vancouver Canuck.
Very cute.
One last time.
It was very cute.
Fully in gear.
I know. And people are like, maybe stay on the ice. Maybe. Because once again, we did have the sort of lack of defensive depth.
Yeah.
Rearing its ugly head, and you just think, maybe a goalie, maybe a defenseman. Like, we could use a little Alex Edler in our lives.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Never hurts.
It was honestly just super awesome to see. He is, he's a legend. He's a Canucks legend, and also I do find him like in retirement much more like forthcoming, much more charming. Like clearly, like I know Murph talked about how like he used to have a deal with Alex Edler that he'd only ask for him once a month, but Alex would not be allowed to give one-word answers in that one interview per month. But yeah, like he wasn't very chatty and talkative and open as a player, but yeah, he seems a bit more chill now, I guess, as you would be now the pressure's off. We also have a new Canucks dog.
Oh, we do?
He's called Eddie.
Did not know this.
Yeah, so like I don't know which is more, of an honor for Alex Edler spending his last day as a Canuck or
and having a dog named
after him. So yeah.
So the Vancouver Canucks got a point at home against the Flames, a point at home against the Flyers. That's 2 points. I recall you and I had mixed opinions as to how many points, but I believe we had a dub and a loss, or it might have been a dub and an overtime loss. But arguably the Vancouver Canucks got the number of points we sort of expected out of those 2 home games.
I think I said a dub and so at least I can't remember if I said dub and overtime loss or dub and overtime win, but either way, I definitely didn't say 2 regulation wins, but I expected them to win against Calgary for sure.
Yes, I think you and I had agreed on that. So Vancouver Canucks get 2 points out of a possible 4. Not bad. They head out the road. And the Lightning game, they scored a goal.
That's true. One goal happened.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of the third period. They scored a goal. And when I say they scored a goal, that's sort of when I tuned in. And if that was all I had watched, I might have thought, the Vancouver Canucks are simply hard-pressed against a better team. I don't think that's untrue. the Lightning were the better team, having heard about it. But the Canucks weren't hard pressed.
Yeah. And like Connor Garland continues to be the hardest working person on the ice, up there with Niels Hoglander, and right now it's translating to actual effectiveness on the ice as well. So it's like, yeah, but unfortunately, two players does not a hockey team make. So yeah, like no arguments that Tampa probably have the best line in all of hockey playing for them, but like again, that's one line that's not really an excuse for how badly the Canucks like played. So yeah, and yeah, the She Loves thing was like a small issue, but I don't think it could be like you could say that was the problem.
Yeah. How much do you think that what we saw to the Vancouver Canucks, or what you and others saw, because again, I didn't see a whole lot of the game, was based on the fact that was the first game on the road, and they were going to an area of the United States that had been hit hard by Hurricane Milton, and then even prior to Milton, a few weeks back was Helene. That all sort of playing into maybe some uncertainty, not ready, and credit to the crowd in Tampa and to the team. They
brought it.
They showed
but
up.
Like we've talked before, like for example during playoffs, about how key those home games are when you're sleeping in your own bed, right? Like when you're settled, you're practicing, like when you need to, etc. Half these Tampa players like can't get back to their house. You know, like these are like that's a huge courage and strength for them. Fact that they were able to they're able to continuously show up. Like the head coach is living in a hotel. Like I bet that's a bunch of the players are. So yeah, I don't honestly think that plays into the Canucks mindset, because I think they're just focused. As long as their plane is there and their bus is there, then I don't think they think too hard about it. Like they're just a bit narrow.
Regardless,
yeah,
Canucks lost, and at this point, I think Petey's being traded.
Yeah,
Canucks Reddit was really big on Petey getting traded. It was like the sky is falling, the world is ending. This Canucks team is bad.
Yeah,
which doesn't line up with how they get a 3-2 win against the Florida Panthers, granted in overtime. Beautiful goal by JT Miller, by the way. If you haven't seen it, look at it. It is a beaut. All is good in the world. The Vancouver Canucks are a great team. They're still trading Petey.
Yeah.
Right? But the one thing that I did appreciate out of what, again, little I saw of the game against the Panthers was that the Vancouver Canucks seemed to have a sense of urgency that was lacking in what little I saw of the Lightning game.
Yes, I think that's fair to say. Even though the momentum of the game was not that, because there were so many friggin' reviews, and that first review took maybe 5 minutes. Which is just like...
Hey, pucks don't have to hit the ice.
Yeah.
To be played.
I mean...
As long as it's not still in the referee's hand.
It did seem to me like they got to the right decision all of the times, but like, yeah, it does break it up a lot. But yeah, it did seem like, I don't think chippy is the right word, but like, I wasn't aware that Florida hated us. I don't know if it's the reviews, but it was quite a, like sort of, there was a lot of beef in the game. And honestly, that made it kind of fun to watch. But yes, there was the also giving up a goal within 11 seconds of scoring one. So I think that defensive depth does continue to be an issue. I think we both talked about before the season, right? Like, yes, we're confident in Hughes and Roenick, and we're like decently confident in Susie and Mars, like within their own role. Maybe the third pairing was where we would have concerns, but now we're like, not even the second pairing can do anything. So yeah, Carson Susie was like so good, especially in the playoffs last year, and now it's like, oh, where'd he go?
Who led the Vancouver Canucks in shots against Florida?
Good question. I don't know the answer.
Quinn Hughes,
Of course
9
it
shots.
was. Yeah,
Like-
he has to do it himself.
So, well, and the reason why I knew this is so in the complex I live in, I'm part of a hockey pool. I got Quinn on my team, and shots count. So I finally tuned to this. But when I saw that Quinn had 9 shots, I actually thought that was like a typo.
No.
Until I go and I look, and yeah, like you look at Vancouver Canucks with shots, you got Brock with 5, Quinn with 9, and then it sort of spreads out from there.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, it feels like Quinn is really looking at the C on his chest and deciding, I do have to do everything.
No one helps me in this house.
And that sort of plays into what I saw against the Flyers, where I think Philadelphia was aware that, hey, this guy seems to think he has to do everything. But if we stop him from doing everything by, I don't know, cross-checking him into the sideboards when he's not ready.
Yeah, I think there was quite a few reactions that were similar to mine when they were just like, Quinn Hughes is in a lot of pain, and everyone's like, I mean, he looks like he's in pain constantly because that's just his face. Like,
well, so I don't know, was it the Flyers game or the Panthers game? But there's like the picture of him on the bench with the big sigh.
So that's from the Philly game, but from the Florida game, there was Deone tried to hype him up on the bench, and him just like,
oh yes. Yeah, Quinn's just focused, and Darren Hayes like, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, no, like he's not McDavid. He's just permanently sad looking Quinn. That's just his face.
Yeah.
Yes.
But against the Flyers, like the Vancouver Canucks did come out flying, no pun intended.
Nice.
They were rewarded for their effort with the Hoglander goal late in the period. But in all fairness, the Vancouver Canucks probably deserved more than just a goal out of one. They played some pretty solid hockey. And then in the second period, the Besser and Sherwood goals took place within a minute. Yeah. It was actually quite surprising to me that Ersson stuck in the net after that third goal. Like I really thought Torts was going to give him the yank.
That was rough. Like, I mean, Sportsnet almost missed that goal. Once again, great job, Sportsnet, because they were in an advert, and so they literally came back as the puck was dropped, like, on that face-off, so not even, like, when the players were ready to go. So, yeah, they did almost miss that goal, and, like, Ersson was clearly watching the commercial, so that was a big miss. That third period, less convincing, I would say.
But it felt like the Vancouver Canucks were in cruise control. Like, again, I don't know. I don't know what it looked like against the Flames when the team's got a big lead and then forget.
But that's the thing, right? That's why I was just like, you can't just sit off with a 3-goal lead.
But were you worried at all against the Flyers in the third period? Like, I was watching it and it was just like, I wasn't really paying that close attention.
Yes, I think we're both looking at the election results coming in as well. But yeah, it wasn't the same energy, but it still kind of surprised me, given what had happened against Calgary, that there wasn't more urgency. But, like, yeah, it didn't cost them because Philly was not feeling it. But yes, that game, obviously, we saw PD go in. Like, clearly, PD needs some help, so who else to turn to but the best players on the Canucks? Connor Garland and Niels Hoglander.
I was going to say, PD got time in place of JT, who got hurt on the face-off.
Yes, or he forgot his mouth guard in the dressing room. He is just like so stubborn. It's so unreal to me how he just loves like messing with the media. He just will not give an inch. Yeah, he wasn't injured. He just forgot something.
Yeah, totally. It had nothing to do with the shaking the hand and immediately leaving the ice and going to the dressing
And Rick
room.
Tocchet was like, yeah, he's dealing with something. Like, even Rick Tocchet said something.
The mouth guard's missing. That's dealing with something. He's not lying. You're right. Petey got to play with some solid players, getting himself an apple in the game. But you know who else got an apple that game? Tyler Myers.
Of course, Mr. 1000.
Yeah. Besser had to encourage him to go and, shake hands on the bench as if he scored the goal.
But it's just like, yeah, like I'm sure you probably had the stat shared after the game that 7 players who reached the 1,000-game milestone whilst playing for the Canucks, only 2 of them have gotten a point in that 1,000th game.
No, I had not heard that. So who's number 2?
Marcus Naslund and Tyler Myers, like hand in hand. No,
same things.
Yeah,
it's like a mirror.
like a funhouse mirror. But
Lankinen was in net. Lankinen got the shutout. Sounds like Lankinen is the goaltender of the future.
Yeah, it's such a weird debate to have. It's the most Vancouver debate to have, that we're like, who should be the backup goalie? But
whereas I like you called him Blankinen.
Blankinen. I think I took that from. It sounds like a Canucks.
You thieving podcast.
Yeah, Canucks.com headline or an NHL.com headline, more likely. Yes. I will say, yeah. I was of the mind during the first week of the season, test them both out, see where you go. Like, there's no point discouraging one when, like, you both are going to have to play. But I think what we're going to look at, let's just put Demko aside for now, because I think we're both of the mind he shouldn't be rushed back. So if this was like a goalie and a backup, I think we're looking at not a Thatcher Demko in a backup situation, because we all know that that's Demko takes the line share, but more of a 1A, 1B where they don't hesitate to go to Shilovs, but Lankinen will start the majority.
We say that, and when they play Chicago on Tuesday, they'll be totally Shilovs.
Yeah.
Which I guess, I mean, as a segue, but
I was just going to...
They do wrap up the road trip against Chicago.
They did ask Rick Tocchet, like, is it a case of riding the hot hand?
He said yes.
He said kind of yes, which is as much as a commitment as you'll get from anyone. Yeah. And, but I think also, like, Canucks have a pretty spaced out schedule, but, like, do they want to play Lankinen next, like, the week after, like, twice in 3 days? Maybe, maybe not. And then November gets a lot busier, so I think that'll be more a case of looking to Shilovs to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. I think Lankinen gets a start in Chicago, and depending on how he plays, maybe gets the start against the Penguins on Saturday at home.
Yeah.
I would suspect Silas would probably factor in against the Canes. But I mean, we'll talk more about that next episode.
Yes. But yeah, I agree that it Shilovs gets the Canes and Lankinen gets the rest.
Yeah. But, looking at those next 2 games, Chicago to wrap up the road trip, Penguins at home on Saturday.
They're under a lot of pressure already, hey?
Well, are they? Or is it that we as fans, very reasonable, level-headed, Canucks fans, are putting the pressure on?
No. I mean, I was talking about Pittsburgh. I just mean, like, surely this is the last year that they can try with Sid and Gino, like...
They'll find a way.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd be curious what happens with them. Yeah, do I think the Canucks are under pressure? Not really. Like, Oilers have struggled. Calgary got off to a huge hot start.
Hey, they've got 2 wins now.
Yeah.
Connor's got a goal. All is right in the world.
Petey's got a good one.
But like, this is the thing is like, I was sort of watching conversation on social media, and there's a number of people like, oh my God, the Canucks are in the gun. Chicago's must win. The Vancouver Canucks, out of 3 road games, have 2 wins.
Yeah.
How is Chicago must win? Now, if you were to go and factor, no, Chris, they only have 6 points out of a possible 10. How is Chicago must win, even under that metric? Like, the Vancouver Canucks are getting points. They have really only 1 loss. Yes, I know they've lost in a shootout and they lost in overtime, but those, you get loser points in those games. So they're not like the game against Tampa. I feel that the Vancouver Canucks, they go in, they play future Canuck Connor Bernard. Win or lose, just a good, solid effort, and understand the seasons early.
Yes. I think what's more important is, like, seeing better efforts from Carson Soucy, seeing better efforts from Petey, and he looked better. Like, I know having good games isn't really enough for Petey at this stage, but him continuing to improve and getting on the score sheet, yeah, is far more important to me than 2 points at this stage in the season. Like, I'm not super concerned about that.
So, Chicago, Pittsburgh, how many points?
4.
Ooh.
Look, I'm so
bold.
positive.
Yeah. So I was going to say 2, but that's because I do think they might take an L in Chicago, but get the dub in Vancouver.
Okay. And to be clear, I am more confident of the Pittsburgh game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like, and again, I'm conceding here. I haven't seen a whole lot of Vancouver Canuck hockey other than highlight stuff, what I've been reading and following sort of from afar. So it's very hard for me to gauge what to expect against the Blackhawks, but they're not going to lose a third one at home. I just can't see it. Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, actually on Hockey Night in Canada, they're CBC, City, and Sportsnet. So
we'll see.
Yeah, it's true. We'll see. Anyhow, we're going to take ourselves a short break. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Well, hockey wasn't really a thing for where I was in upstate New York, although in fairness, the Airbnb we were staying in had one of those smart TVs with the free TV service, so you don't really get much sports coverage as it is. I did see the ceremony for the Gaudreau brothers, and or I guess, I mean, the brothers, but Johnny Gaudreau specifically. And I thought it was really well put together, really well done.
Agreed.
And how, Columbus started with, an empty left wing.
Yeah, and they dropped the puck
like that. That
13
was
seconds.
Yeah,
and I will say, I've seen the 13 seconds of silence at every home opener, and to me, that felt a little cringe because I'm like, "What's 13 seconds?" I get it. Mm-hmm. He's 13, but it felt a little gimmicky. And the ceremony that the Blue Jackets did was just the opposite of that. It was classy. It was just amazing strength of his family. His wife recorded a video, and just the two teams that were able to then play a game after that just hugely emotional thing. But it was so well handled. I was so impressed.
Yeah, and I when I just, it was a little dusty.
Yeah.
when
I
saw
am
that.
tearing up right now, even though it is also very dusty in it. So it is both.
Yeah. There are times when hockey, I mean, you and I, we take hockey to task regularly, but I think it's important that we recognize that there are times that they do things
Yeah.
better than right, and I feel that was one of them.
Yes. Well put. Yeah, and Sean Monahan scoring was just like icing on the cake there, and very emotional as well.
That mentioned, we do want to talk about the Vancouver Canucks a little bit more. The Vancouver Canucks have had some struggles historically with special teams. Apparently this season, despite historical problems being historical, are trying to prolong history. The power play looks slow.
Yeah.
And I know I've been saying this for a while now, but when you look at like what we saw in the playoffs with Edmonton, put them on the power play and that puck's moving fast. They're confident, they're throwing it around, and eventually score. Like it's almost inevitable. The Vancouver Canucks are like the opposite. And I don't understand, like, is it a personnel issue? Like, do they have players that can't move the puck or don't have confidence in making those passes? And, it's not that they don't move the puck around. They're just predictable, very deliberate. And how do you, like, to me, if you want to defend against this, you just read the book that is Vancouver.
Yeah.
And know what's on the next page.
That's the thing. It was kind of like, it's not even like, what, the Canucks have like 3 power play goals, I believe? Like, that's not crazy low. Like, that's one every other game. But it's the speed at which they're doing it. It's just like, this is not sustainable. And like, clearly it's not, because they've really whiffed on the last few games on their opportunities. And it's just like playing against yourself, because you're using this gift wrapped opportunity to do set plays with a man advantage, and you're giving it up. It's just like, in fact, Kevin Lankinen has had to save quite a few shorthanded opportunities. Yeah, it's been a problem for a while, and I think it's fair to say that like Canucks feel stuck right now with regards to that.
So how do you fix it? Like, what would you do?
What
would you suggest? My suggestion is move it around.
Yes, quicker.
Right? Like, I understand that there's risk there. Like, you can't just throw the puck around quickly. You're more apt to make mistakes. And if there's one thing we've known about the Vancouver Canucks and how they, stack their power play, better darn hope it's Quinn Hughes back there, because he's about the only guy that can defend. Though, credit to Petey. Petey's back check prevented what looked to be a sure goal against the Flyers. So.
And I will say, like, now that Hogland is getting some much awaited special teams time, like, I think that's good. But, like, yeah, like you said, like, I feel like they get bogged down way too easily. And it feels like they're not shooting. But it's not like you want them to shoot more, because that's not the answer necessarily. It's because, like, by the time they get to a shooting position, they've slowed down the play so much that that's not a good position any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it feels frustrating, because it does feel like this is what we were talking about last year.
Yeah, well, we talk about it every year. I've been recording this podcast now for how long?
Yeah. And at the beginning of last year...
I complained about the power plays when it's slow.
But yeah, at the beginning of last year, it was like, oh, Canucks have turned a corner, it looks good, it looks fast.
Mm-hmm. And then they forgot
again. So, yeah, I don't think this is a good look, nor is it a sustainable look to go throughout the season like this. So,
Just do it 3/4. Do enough to get yourself to the postseason.
Do we think that
worked last year?
Canucks should follow in the footsteps of Premier League, where they just... I know they have coaches that run the special teams, but maybe it's just like you bring in one guy.
Well, the Canucks have done that in the past. I mean, granted, it's not a guy who just does power play,
But maybe they should.
but the guy they bring in to run either the defense or the offense, surprisingly, is also the power play guy.
But, you know, they literally have corner specialists in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Narrow niche focus, maybe. I don't know.
Just add it to the Sedin's, list of duties. They do everything else.
Or just put the Sedins on the ice.
True. Dakota has been with the team. He's back skating. I don't think a timeline has been shared as to when he might return. But obviously positive signs for someone who's dealing with testicular cancer to be getting back into hockey as quick as he might
And I think it's huge for morale. Like, I mean, we've seen Tyler Myers, what he means to the room. It's really big. Like, he's a huge, morale guy and, huge culture guy. And we've talked about big in the room. Like, Tyler Myers is both literally and figuratively huge in the room. But I think Dakota Joshua is one of those guys, the glue guys. And for the team to see him skating, I think is a bit of a boost as well. But yeah. And it's just really awesome for him. I really hope that his recovery continues to go smoothly.
Agreed. Speaking of skating, is any word about Thatcher being back on the ice?
I mean, he's been on the ice by himself.
I know he's been on the ice. He's been on the ice, but to the extent that he might return.
Yeah.
Like, he's on the road with the team, is he not?
Yeah, but I think that's just a way to go, guys. Like Dakota Joshua as well, Like, he's there for a fist bump.
Well, no, I know Dakota's there for the fist bump right now.
I think that's the same. I don't think there's any thought as to he would be skating with the team.
Yeah.
I think we're still at least a month away.
I know you and I subscribe to the theory he shouldn't rush back.
And that doesn't mean we're unconcerned with the goalie situation. Canucks can't do well this season without Thatcher Demko.
What are you talking about? They got Blankinen in it.
Like, they're just not, they've taken a step down, at least when it comes to defense.
Yeah.
So they need Thatcher, but we need Thatcher to be in the playoffs. We don't need him to come back in October.
You say we need Thatcher. I think what we're suggesting is we need
a healthy Thatcher.
The goaltender that people described as, we got Demcode. That's what we need. That's sort of what we're talking about.
Using your name as a verb is Thatcher. A big goal of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard nothing. Not that I'm connected, but I have heard nothing. And what little I have heard sort of lean up this, there's still so many question marks.
Yeah.
And being that his injury is so rare.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
You don't want to be a medical marvel.
No. Yeah. At some point in time, everyone gets to be. Like when I was a kid and had 30 student doctors come in and look at some rash I had that doesn't present itself in Canada much.
There you go.
Got it from a hot tub.
Delightful.
Yeah. Do you know, so off the rails moment, my family doctor at the time, when it was sort of, he was, because, where I had the rash was essentially where I'd be wearing my bathing suit. So I was like, did you get swimming with her? I'm like, we're at a friend's hot tub. He's like, oh, yeah, I stay out of the people soup myself. Like when it's described that way?
Yeah, okay.
The people soup.
Yeah, I mean, further off the rails, I've had a colleague remark about how I never get sick, and as an adult, I don't really. But I was a sick kid. Any weird illness or accident or injury, that happened to me.
So your immune system is supercharged.
Yeah, but it wasn't just like immune stuff. It was like fall off somewhere
No.
weird.
But you got it all out of the way early.
So now I'm super healthy.
I'm not going to say I kind of did, but like, the tropical disease was 30 student doctors checking me out when I was like 10 or 11. That was weird.
That's strange.
Medical marvel, Chris Golden. Anyhow. Yeah, I mean, back on topic with Thatcher, much like Dakota, don't rush back. But to your point, it'd be nice if it was sooner than later as a top tier goaltender.
Yeah. But we need Thatcher to play in the playoffs. We don't need Thatcher to be...
Good thing that's not until April.
Yeah.
Or May. I don't know. I actually haven't looked ahead as to when the season ends, so...
But it's kind of, like how we used to say, like, there's a difference between qualifying for the playoffs and being a playoff team. And last year was the first time Canucks were actually a playoff team.
We didn't believe they were qualifying for the playoffs when the Vancouver Canucks were leading the league, right? Like, that is not, it's not going to happen.
But it's like that with Thatcher. Like, we don't want him to, like, make it back to the team. We want him to...
make it and stay.
Get in.
Not play one game and then be ready for the third round.
Yes.
Oh, one final note: NHL awards apparently are no more.
I mean, they were somewhat dumb. Anyway.
Okay, the awards are still happening. The awards show is no more.
Yeah. I mean, it was always a bit of a weird one that everyone has to go to Vegas. It was also the one time players actually dressed up and looked. And I say that as players wear suits every game, but you know what I mean? Would have more fun with the way they dress. But yeah, I don't know if it's a good thing because it was a bit.
I never really watched the award show.
No,
I'll be honest. It was we've talked about how for me, I'm the award show and even the All-Star sort of game isn't it for me, or the tournament as it is now. I like the skills competition because it's the players are having fun.
And it's so, I mean, I do think that, I love the All-Star game, but I think it could be better. But I've never really felt much about the awards. But, that might be a good segue to just talk about briefly, the marketing campaign the NHL is on right now. Have you seen the Gen Z commercial?
No.
I would encourage you and everyone else to check that out because it's actually genuinely good content, which is kind of weird to say about the NHL actually being good marketing for themselves.
I wonder who they hired.
Yeah. Probably not the same people that came up with the new Boston women's team. Yeah. Anyway, I will say, yeah, they did a good job. I'm finding it alarming the amount of commercials that Connor McDavid is in. Because I'm just
it's Connor as Bay in the ICNHL.
But literally, just because he swore a couple of times in the Face Off documentary does not mean he has a personality. It's like making a robot do things. It just it's so awkward and weird to me.
Yeah.
But he's trying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anywho, here we are, end of a show, almost an hour in. Vancouver Canucks will be back in action, as we said, Tuesday against the Blackhawks on the road, back at home on Saturday against the Penguins. Anna and I will be back next weekend to record, so you'll hear that episode following Monday. But this one is obviously the first one to show up in your ears, and we're going to be like this throughout most of the rest of the season. Obviously, come holiday time, long weekends, we'll occasionally take the odd break here and there. So there will be one in November, coinciding with Remembrance Day, and then one break sometime during the holiday season, as we're sort of apt to do. A lot of time off holidays, and we'll record one from the fabulous internet in the UK. That's somehow better than the internet she has here. But got any final words of wisdom for all of our listeners this week?
I'm just glad hockey's back and the Canucks finally won a couple games, so, we'll never have problems again.
Words of wisdom for me is if you happen to be taking a flight anywhere, if you feel the urge to use the washroom or feel the urge might come to you to use the washroom at some point, get up and use the washroom. Because if you happen to be on the flight that I was on, halfway between Vancouver and Montreal, and the pilot says the lavatories are malfunctioning and are now closed. It's 2.5 hours to Vancouver, so don't drink. You don't want that to be the moment when suddenly, I really wish I would have gone.
The power of suggestion.
Well, I'm just fortunate that my daughter went to the washroom moments before they got shut down, because it's one thing if you're, grown-ass man like I am having a, oh, well, this is uncomfortable to a 7-year-old girl.
Because if you're at the other end of the spectrum, presumably you're kind of okay because you're kind of covered. But, once you get beyond that point, it's quite difficult to control. I've also been on a flight where the lavatories broke, but because it was a 10-hour flight, we just turned around and went back to South Africa. So that was fun.
Still, that sucks for anyone who had a connection.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Make sure you use the lavatories when you can. Also, don't be sitting on those toilet seats when you press the flush button, because the vacuum isn't kind.
Yeah, that's how you get sucked out.
Yeah, there's other ways. I've watched far too many movies. I was trying to explain that to my daughter, like how the toilets work, and
I'm sure that just made her want to try it.
Well, she was more scared. Like she's actually, I don't know, scared or intimidated. Automatic toilets and whatnot, she's not down with them. So I don't think she was really keen on this one having a vacuum, because I think she perceived it as automatic. But it wasn't working. So
there we go.
It explains why the flush button didn't work after she used it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, if you've reached this part of the show and you're going to tune in next week, thanks. If you were not, I hope you still change your mind and do. You can join in the conversation on C4 Discord, discord.io/C4 podcast. And you can go and see our most back catalog, because it's not all the episodes, at c4podcast.com. Anna and I are on all the social medias, but so is the podcast. The podcast is at the C4 Podcast, except for Threads, we're at the Real C4 Podcast. And I know I promised that there might be something new to listen to this week. It's not here. Don't be alarmed if you're like, nothing's changed. It hasn't.
We could have gaslit
maybe next
our
week.
Listeners, though. We could have been like, it was already there. Didn't you
if
hear
they've
it?
tuned in for, was it now, like, how many years? I forgot. It's like more than a decade now. I don't know how many years I've been recording. I've gaslit them multiple times.
Yeah. We wouldn't do that.
Anywho.
Would we?
We'll be back next week. On behalf of Anna, E4C03, myself, Chris at Lightforce, signing off with We Out.